Okay, and welcome everybody. It's really a pleasure to have this last session of today, a long day here, the closing circle of wisdom. And while we are waiting for our other guest speakers to join us, I think they will do so in momentarily. I'm very, very pleased to host and have here with me Lieven Bertier from Barco. We are just discussing how tough these times are for trade shows but perhaps we could keep this conversation while waiting for our guests to join us. I think they probably join us on a few moments or so. Lieven, glad to have you here.
My pleasure, Paul, and thank you for the invitation.
Okay, is this the first time you are using a live stream studio?
It's the first time I'm using this tool. Yeah, absolutely. I've had plenty of Zoom sessions and go-to meetings and so on, but it's the first time I'm on StreamYard.
That's great. That's great to have you here, and welcome to StreamYard Studio. Yes, the advantage here is that we are live broadcasting 3 different channels, so viewers are watching us not just in LinkedIn, but also on YouTube and Facebook. And obviously the advantage is that we can have live interactions with all the participants that are watching us live now. They put some comments on the conversation, but also afterwards will be watched by many other social network members. Cool. So, Lieven,
Cool.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you able to share something about yourself, your personal or professional life that you normally share don't share with the audience?
Let me start with who I am. So I've been with Barco for 20 plus years now in different marketing roles, and most recently, in fact, with ClickShare. So I was there since we launched ClickShare. That's now 8 plus years ago. Fantastic journey from an internal startup to a product that's got mainstream in the industry. So learned a lot, experienced a lot, so fantastic stuff. I ran product management, and today I'm officially responsible for the segment strategy for everything that is about workplace. But you were after personal details, Paul. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a soccer lover, so I played soccer myself for almost 40 plus years. I retired 2 years ago, got too old, couldn't keep up with the other ones anymore. And so I found a new passion. I love cooking and I love a good glass of wine. And I'm sure I see Gary just joined, and I'm sure Gary's also in for a good glass of wine.
I think you two already knew each other.
We do.
Oh, yeah. We do.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Gary, welcome to the studio. And for you, obviously, it's not your first on StreamYard. I know Rave produces lots of broadcasts, so interesting. It's so good to have you here, Gary. Thank you so much for joining us. And same question, is there anything about your personal, professional, or even personal life that you normally do not share with your audience that you're willing to share today?
That's a good question. First off, thanks for having me. I'm coming to you at my home office, actually my home studio office, which I have multiple green screens hanging in different directions so I can build it into a studio here, but it's quite messy today. I just finished a live broadcast. Here's one some people don't know. I have a Star Wars tattoo on my hand, the Rebel Alliance tattoo. That's probably something that a lot of people do know about me. I'm a giant Star Wars fan. A fun fact, I actually saw Star Wars the opening weekend at Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood in 1977 on May 25th, which was the day it came out, through a series of accidental events, which I had no idea what I was about to see. So I'm a big Star Wars fanatic. I regularly go to Disney World to Galaxy's Edge. And I do know Lieven, and Lieven and I have worked together on a few different projects, and I'm a giant admirer of what he's done over at Barco. I don't think it can be understated, his impact at Barco with collaboration, their leadership position. Other display companies are in awe of what Lieven and his team have done. And now they're even partnering with Barco. So you're seeing other display companies partner with the ClickShare partnership program, which helps determine compatibility and simplicity with the platform. So I'm in awe to be part of this with you, Paul, and Lieven today.
Yeah, it's really great to have you guys, because I mean it's definitely true that Barco is really what we could say a thought leader in the field, because they do not just deliver incredible solutions, but also I think that Lieven is the author of a number of papers, or maybe the company. I'm not sure if you, Lieven, but your company authors a number of interesting papers that we share. And definitely, directly to business, because right now we are seeing throughout the day in Digital Collab Americas, we have entertained speakers from all over the world. Like we had people from Lebanon, a guest facilitator from Lebanon, Noah Elash, and we had Sarah Wong, who is based in Amsterdam. It's amazing to see how the world is become so shorter. Like the idea of the planet being a small village is now coming through. So what would you think will be the impact of digital collaboration tools? Not right now, because right now we are already enabling all these, but in the near future, what do you think from your lived experience? Where is this trend leading us? Perhaps in alphabetical order, Gary.
Well, I'll tell you this. Nobody's going to be going, we need audio here, here, and here. They're going to be saying we need video here. Audio's sort of understood. Like nobody's asking for audio conferencing anymore. I definitely would not want to be in the phone business. I think that if your phone doesn't have video and your technology, I think the first and biggest impact is the sheer commoditization of video. We put video everywhere. My parents even understand what I do now. Like all of a sudden, any party we go to in the holidays or when we finally get back together, everyone is going to understand what we do. Like for years, I would struggle when someone said, "What do you do? Like what market is that?" It was hard to explain. Now everyone knows the industry, and our industry has solved a lot of world problems, and not as deep and as serious as Pfizer and AstraZeneca and companies like that. But I mean, think about this. Our industry kept education globally moving. And so the impact is going to be an adoption of video and an acceptance that the person who's on the video part of the meeting isn't like the stepchild of the meeting. I don't know if that term is translating well, but like when you were on video in a meeting, if you had a live meeting with a bunch of participants and someone was on video, we almost forgot about them and they were almost afraid to speak up. They weren't equal to the rest of the people in the room. They weren't perceived equal and they didn't feel equal because they weren't there three-dimensionally and they weren't able to raise their hand. They weren't able to start. In fact, when you were on video and you started talking, echo cancellation had problems where you would start talking a half second later than the person and you'd get cut off and you'd stop talking because you heard someone live talk. All these problems have been solved now with some of the new technology and video everywhere. So the biggest, most immediate impact we're going to see is just video everywhere. I can't even understate how big that's going to be. Lobbies of hotels, technical support, we're getting support on products in the future. And obviously working environments, we're going to be expected to be able to jump on calls. The days of, I'm going to give you a call on your phone are gone. It's going to be like, let's set up a Zoom meeting, let's set up a Teams meeting. That's the one thing I can guarantee you has changed forever.
Wow, amazing.
But you're right there, Gary. And I mean, we had this world where you had to be present in the room, or your voice didn't matter, or you had to, I don't know, start doing crazy things, dress up, wear wigs, all that kind of stuff. And from like one day to the next, video is everywhere. Everything is by definition virtual. And now the next challenge is, because I mean, first of all, we were so happy. We had more time with the family, less commuting. We felt more productive, and so on. A year later, we're in this situation where we're like, oh my God, this cannot be the world. We miss the connection, we miss the people, and so on. And now the big challenge I'm seeing is we got to find this new equilibrium, I would say. Most people call it hybrid, but what's it going to be? And also, how are we going to provide this digital equity in a hybrid world? That is the crucial question to me going forward, because it's easy when you're all in the same room. It's easy when you're all virtual, but the world is going to be sort of a mixed bag going forward. That's what hybrid is about. And that's going to be a crucial one, how to address this, because videos everywhere, fully agree. At the same time, if I look at the adoption of whiteboarding tools, all kind of digital collaboration tools, it's still in its infancy, in all honesty, and that is going to be a crucial question going forward.
Yeah, I think that the answer is in front of us, though, Lieven. I think if you being a big football and slash soccer fan, here's the truth. I mean, we don't need the announcers. We can literally watch the game while the cameras are there. The difference the announcers make is they create the immersive experience and make us feel connected to the game, because they do stuff like send us the stats. They tell us the interpersonal stories of the players. They tell us, hey, someone just got engaged, someone's parents just died, whatever it is, they tell us, and they're entertaining us as they go, because there are lulls in the game. That's the key. The key is the connection between the person who's online versus the person who's live is going to be solved with the sportscaster analogy. We're going to have to figure out some way to utilize that now. So yeah, you can watch a game without the sportscaster, just like this is what we're doing today. What we're doing today is the live people are there and we're streaming to the people who are online. That's like the same thing. The analogy of that is just having the cameras in the stadium and you can watch the game. You can see the score and you know what's going on, but the announcers make the difference. And that's the piece we have to plug the hole, is we have to create that interpersonal individual who does that.
Yeah, it's about humanizing this whole thing. I mean, if I would try to summarize it, that would be my words.
Yep.
Definitely, and it's really amazing because the conversation flows so naturally here. We have two thought leaders here, but for the man in the street, so to say, for the company guy, that is probably facing after this pandemic a need reshift on the thinking of their entire business. What practical advices you would give to play safe in terms of digital collaboration tools? What would be a practical advice to play safe? And perhaps reverse now, Lieven and then Gary.
There's a lot of dimensions to cover, Paul, and it's hard to be exhaustive on this one. For me personally, the most important element is providing the right tools, the right solutions for people that people actually want to use. And you were referring to it in the introduction, Paul. We do like research every 6 months with Barco, because we think it's important to profile ourselves. Then there's a marketing dimension to it, but it also provides great insights. And so one of the things that is constant there is that people have not lost their faith in technology. So in our latest research, 80% of people expressed a strong belief in technology to make the world better, to make for better collaboration, to make for better meetings. That is like one constant we are seeing. At the same time, people are flagging, hey, meetings aren't what they used to be. So we're struggling with them, we're dissatisfied. We have this meeting barometer. It plunged down from plus 63 2 years ago to minus 17. And that's related to the fact that we're struggling with meetings, expressing ourselves, getting the engagement and so on. But so the first thing to me is technology can offer a solution there. That's our belief. That's our respondents' belief. At the same time, when you look at technology and how to solve it, it's about this whole notion of experience, about intuitive technology we love using. And all of us are joining here from our home offices with technology we're used to, technology we're familiar with, interfaces we're familiar with. That's what we're going to bring back into the workplace. And that's always been the case, but that is to me the revolution that is about to happen. We will no longer accept tools imposed on us. We want the tools we're used to. We want to choose the tools we want to work with, because that's how we are expressing ourselves in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I'm glad that Nancy finally joined us. But Gary, over to you, and then I'll hand over to Nancy, because I'm glad she joined us. Lots of stuff.
I do want to say I was backstage for 15 minutes waiting to be let in. So talking about technology is very topical.
Okay, I got it. I got the message. But anyway, glad you're here, and now the conversation can proceed. And Gary, over to you on this question. Advice for men in the street, let's say, business owners, on what is the best way to play safe on collaboration technology right now?
I really think that there's no one size fits all, and you have to really look at the workflow of the organization, because not every organization meets the same way and wants to meet the same way. And most of them aren't looking for a new way to meet. That's not what they want. They really want to know, how can we find a way to simplify everything that we're doing? And so I think that you really have to pay attention to the workflow. Also, Nancy's right. The technology has to be simpler to use. Like, why every single UCC platform feels the need to reinvent how all of us connect is crazy. Like, why can't we all just use the exact same interface? That little bit would make a big difference, because if you're a Teams user, boom, you know Teams. If you're a Zoom user, know Zoom. As soon as you go to another platform, it's like learning to it's like learning to tie your shoes over again. It's like they've all of a sudden told you the way you tied your shoes was wrong. You got to tie it a different way. Yet the result is the same. You're just tying your shoes. And then finally, another thing that could really help is stop assuming everyone wants to have 15, 30, 45, and 60-minute meetings. Give us the ability to start a meeting 5 after and finish at 12 after. Like, allow us to insert times so that we don't have death by meeting. Because when you have a 15-minute meeting, by default, everybody meets for 15 minutes. You have a 30-minute. Like, if I could call 5-minute meetings, at number one, everyone would accept them. Number two, if I got one, I'd be thank God, because we don't need to be meeting for 15 minutes. We only need to meet for 5 minutes. So what's happened is that these conversations that were quick phone calls have turned into long meetings that don't need to happen. So the combination of those three things, like the integrator needs to really think about that workflow and then simplify things, and then provide the ability to have really short meetings so that we can get on to the work that needs to be done.
And that's amazing, because I'm glad that you're saying this, Gary, because with us today is Nancy Saddle-Murphy. And Nancy is an expert facilitator, and she's also a meeting designer for both face-to-face, remote, and hybrid meetings. So we're going to talk a lot today about hybrid meetings too. She's a virtual team expert, cross-cultural trainer, and instructional designer, and also an author. And Nancy has a range of specialities, but of course also facilitation skills trainings. And she also designs and facilitates multiple virtual workshops. So Nancy, the question to you is that, do you think organizations need a 5 minutes meeting? There's no way an organization needs time for in-depth thinking, reflection, like we used to have in on-site meetings in the past, off-site meetings, sorry.
Well, I guess I have a few thoughts here. One is that I think while having brief meetings is laudable, especially when the conversation can be done quickly, I also think sometimes we err on the too short side and have conversations or meetings that resemble a checklist, less so an actual conversation and exchange of ideas. So I think it's important to think about what kind of a conversation is needed by whom, what conversation needs to be done in real time versus a conversation that can be done asynchronously, either by everyone or by sub-teams or a few people. And then what are your goals of that actual real-time conversation? Sometimes, and I see many times, people say, let's have a 30-minute meeting to agree on an organizational plan. That probably can't be done. So I do think we need shorter meetings for many objectives, or no meetings, like status reporting. Do we need a meeting about that? I doubt it sometimes, but anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. I think it's about the conversation to meet the goals and let that determine the length of the meeting.
Absolutely. And how about Lieven? How about what is the Barco's vision for supporting this kind of collaboration in terms of what is it that you bring more than Zoom or Teams, for instance?
I wouldn't say what is it that we bring more. It is what's the added value we are bringing to those platforms. That's what we're focusing on. Now, our core insight is the fact we call it BYOM, Bring Your Own Meeting. For a lot of different acronyms, it was some people called Bring Your Own Meet, Bring Your Own Mother, whatever, Bring Your Own Mac. But for us, it's about bringing your own meeting. And that is our core insight based on which we have developed the ClickShare product range. And what do we mean with it? It's related to the fact that whether you're at home, whether you're in the office, your laptop is your connection point. That's your interface to the world. That's the experience you're familiar with. And so imagine you walk into the company and there's a control panel, there's a room hub, there's a room system whatsoever. From room to room, from setting to setting, you may have a different interface. It's how do I hook up my laptop to this? And that's the friction we're trying to take away with ClickShare. So long story short, if you walk into a meeting room and you have Zoom on your laptop, you have Teams on your laptop, WebEx, whatever platform you want to use, you walk in, you wirelessly bridge into the cameras and mics of the meeting room, and boom, there you go. You have captured the whole room, but you do it through your laptop. That is the power of ClickShare today.
Amazing. And how about going hybrid, and hybrid being the challenge? Because this was something that we already talked about that, about this. I see that there's a wonderful piece of thought leadership on this article here. Remote meetings are the future, because indeed this is a challenge. Gary, what are your views on the challenge of hybrid meetings, and what is it that technology is going to have to do in order to support them well?
So I think that high flex education has solved the hybrid meetings problem. So if you actually look at what a high flex classroom is and how it works, it's different than a hybrid classroom and a hybrid meeting. So I think that finding a way to emulate what's happening in high flex, and the difference in high flex versus hybrid in education, and I teach at the University of North Carolina, so we have a hybrid. My classroom is a high flex classroom, and the difference is I can see everyone. They can see me in real time. They're in the same size proportions as the live people. So the live people and the remote people are their heads and their bodies are the same size proportions as the people sitting in the classroom. And so I'm greeting them and I'm interacting with them in just the same way I would the people that are live. And they're sitting behind the people that are live. And the way we do that is we use projection, right? We project them on the wall of the people behind them. And instead of them being stacked vertically, we have them spread out horizontally. So we spread them across two desktops, right? So we use we use a Mac Mini with using dual desktop, right? You can't do it on a PC. You can only do it on Mac, where you can spread the application like Zoom across two monitors. When you try to spread Zoom across two monitors on a Windows, it pops to one or pops to the other. So you have to stack them vertically. So that's a long way of saying that if we could do the same thing in the hybrid environment, and I can tell you that the ClickShare is the closest that you're coming to right now for I can actually share a picture if you want to show you kind of what I'm talking about.
I'm curious about iFlex classrooms, and I Google it, on my shared screen.
There's one right there. If you the very first one, click on the very first one.
This one here?
Yep, click on that one. That's the most high flex drawing I've seen, because the teacher who's teaching that class sees the students remotely in the same size proportions or in the same mode that they see the ones in hybrid, right? Or in hybrid education, the students that are joining aren't necessarily seen or necessarily synchronous. So theoretically, we have this when you have a meeting using ClickShare, using UCC client, right? The problem is that we have to find a way to make those people not feel like they're not part of the meeting. And so therefore, they all kind of naturally feel like they're not part of the meeting because they're flat people instead of three-dimensional people. And I think for a good presenter or a good meeting leader, they do it. For most presenters and most meeting leaders, they don't do it. So it's a combination of people problems and technology problems. And there's some simple ways around this. Like I'm quite sure, I don't want to give away any secrets. I'm quite sure Barco is working on a way that they can break chat out of things like Zoom and Teams and make it available on some secondary display so that you can see when people are chatting questions versus, especially when you have large meetings. Because you don't have time to look at the people, look at the live people, look at your notes, and look at chat when it's in a little teeny app like this. So having it big on the wall. So I'm sure Lieven's going to love hearing this. The future of the meeting room is going to be filled with display technology.
I'm going to give you $1, Gary, for any idea you bring up today.
Let me tell you, you're going to have display like in the typical. You look at Barco's drawings; they always look about the same. Meeting table, and then they have two monitors there. In some cases, one monitor. The future is going to be like 5 monitors. One that's dedicated to the chat conversations that are going on. One that's dedicated to the whiteboarding or the blackboarding or whatever's going on, then one's dedicated to people. Right now, we're only solving the people visual problem, not the people communication problem, because we don't all communicate only by voice, and not the other device problems of things in the room. And right now, you can't just do that with Zoom. You can't just break those things out with Zoom. You have to be a little bit more sophisticated in that. And the ClickShare conference and future generations, I'm quite sure will address that.
Okay, guys. So let's go a little bit on process, and I'm glad that Nancy is here as a facilitator and also an organizational change expert, because I mean, obviously we love to see these iFlex concepts in pictures, in images, and I'm sure, Gary, that in the education world, in universities, it's going to be very successful. Wondering about how organizations are going to react to this, because on one hand we have such an amount of different styles of collaboration needs. On the other hand, we are going to have to deal with hybrid. Some participants will not be able to join this face-to-face conference. And what are our views on how we can change collaborative process in order to adapt to this new reality?
Well, I'm thinking of two different scenarios. One would be for meetings, whether they're repetitive meetings or decision-making or action planning meeting. I think in that case, if it's a team, it's a recurring team, if they have some asynchronous means of communication outside of the real-time meeting time, I think that they'll need less time in the real-time meetings, and B, I think, and I'm making an assumption and generalization here, but they're going to be possibly more likely to adapt more quickly to new technology. And actually that has a lot to do with demographics, I think. I do think there's certain, and don't ask me which, but certain demographics or certain industries, certain job organizational functions that I find tend to be more resistant to new technology than others. So I think when it's let's say a steady state meeting of the same group of people, you have more of an opportunity to gear people up, to help them get comfortable, maybe give them training in advance, have some low risk, low stakes conversations where they can understand how they'll be portrayed, their image, etc. I think what might be tougher is when it's a conference or an event where there are many people from different organizations, either within one company or enterprise, or different functions and different company cultures and different national cultures and different time zones and different languages. Because all of those differences are kind of add layers of complexity that make the adoption to new technology more challenging.
Thank you so much for bringing that, Nancy. Go ahead. You want to say something else?
No, that was
okay. Because I have a
can I build on that? Can I build on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So when you were talking, Nancy, about technology and so on, it reminded me of a quote I picked up from a futurist, Gert Leonhard. He's a Dutch futurist, and his statement was, "Technology is exponential, but humans are not." And that is, to me, also a key challenge to address in the workplace, because speed of innovation is so fast. The tools we are getting, it's shiny, it's new, it's full of features, it's full of specs, but we still got to cope with it, being humans. And whether we like it or not, we are the slowest processors in the meeting room or in the workplace.
Absolutely.
I think let me build on that too.
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
There's definitely a demographic difference there too. If you look at your own kids, those people who are watching, and ask them, or just yeah, just watch them use Snap, just watch them use TikTok, just watch them use Instagram. Which, by the way, none of those three have any instructions. They're all very complicated apps that have no instructions, and anyone under the age of 35 can figure out how to use them instantly, and everyone over the age of 50 has to have somebody show them how to use it. And it's and I don't mean to be mean. I mean, I'm in that demographic too. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why they figure out how to use it is because there's some logic and they all work about the same. Like, in other words, the same features work. And you go switch between Teams and Zoom, you can't even get the windows to look the same. Like, Teams seems to think that they want to have variable window sizes on the fly. And Zoom, I don't know what they're thinking about right now with the way that they're organizing people in the hierarchy of meetings. So we have to find a way to to think the way Snap thinks, the way TikTok thinks, and the way that these younger students think that are natural multitaskers. But I'm not as concerned about the future because I think that I think we're going to leave, and when we retire, and we're going to look back at this, we're going to be like, how did we ever meet like we're meeting today? Like, I think they're going to be doing something that's totally different. Like, I think, VR and AR and XR and MR, all these technologies are really going to change the world, and they're going to be adopted at a very high rate.
Yeah, but go back 20 years in time and imagine if COVID struck 20 years ago.
Yeah, nothing would have happened.
The world economy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. It almost did. But at least education kept going. Yeah.
Absolutely. I detect here a little bit of silence, so let me step in with a last comment I'm a member of the International Association of Facilitators, and I think so do you, Nancy. And the last request was from a colleague who was having the challenge to host a meeting where he would need 3 different languages in the same meeting. So he was asking about translation technology for having these 3 types of conversation happening at the same time. I immediately was skeptical on finding ways that the technology today is going to solve these communication barriers between members and participants from different countries and different languages. But maybe, Gary, you can share your views on what is the knowledge you have on how this is going to evolve, translation, automatic translation, and perhaps also Lieven, and then back to Nancy.
Okay, so can I use chat in here? Or is there a way for me to chat a URL? Because I could tell you a company.
I think you are able to share screen if you like. Yeah.
I don't see that option. All of a sudden it disappeared. You know what? I made my screen smaller because of that, I think.
But you have an option. If not, if you can pass me the URL on the comments.
I will. So if you're online right now and you want to know how to do simultaneous translation of meetings really simply, for meetings like these, just go to kudoway.com, kudoway.com, kudoway.com. That is a cloud-based translation service that does real-time translation into many different languages of online events. So there's your solution right there.
I think you can share now, Gary. Can you try it?
Let's see. Is it available? Yeah, there you go. I can share that.
Let's share, and because I'm so curious about that, the challenges of simultaneous translation, no,
it's only let me share my whole screen, which I've got like a ton of stuff on there. But it's kudoway.com. Yep.
Okay, cool. Anyway, and Lieven, your thoughts on this, and then back to Nancy.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Gary, I'm happy to share my screen here. So.
Yeah, I did type in the chat with the URL. So
let me just pick a window. Oh yeah, and then here we go. Now we're gonna see ourselves. But here you go. That's the multilingual meetings reinvented. That's what you were referring to, Gary, right?
Yep. Yes.
All right. So let me stop sharing. Then I can see the camera again. So it's a fascinating topic, and it reminds me. In fact, we were talking trade shows before we started Paul, and we were talking ISE and Infocom. It reminds me of the last Infocom I did in Beijing in China. That's 2 years ago now, and unfortunately, but the whole AI and the whole technology scene in China is crazy at the moment. And so I remember seeing a demo there. It was from MaxHub, and they had simultaneous translation or subtitling, I gotta say, on their flat screen. And the reason they built it was because there are so many different dialects in China that people did not understand one another. So this automatic subtitling feature was intended for people who spoke actually the same language, but different dialect versions, to make sure they understood one another. If I transpose this to our world today, I'm a big fan myself of Otter.ai. I have it here on both on my phone and iPad. And so whenever there's like a creative moment, a creative meeting, I just record it and I automatically get a transcript for me to store. If I'm not mistaken, it's also technology incorporated in Zoom today. But so long story short, I'm a big believer of this, because even though you might only pick up 80 or 90% of what gets said in a meeting, it allows you to overcome language barriers. It allows you to overcome cultural differences. At the same time, by background or from my education, I'm a linguist. So I'm passionate about everything that has to do with language and so on. And I don't believe, and I refuse to believe, that a machine can be as good as humans in terms of adding nuance and so on. But that being said, if 80% of Chinese becomes understandable to me, that's a big step forward. So big believer of all this technology, with a little caveat as a linguist, I don't believe the machines will ever be as good.
Amazing. Anyone else would like to chime in?
Well, I have a slightly different twist on the topic of different native languages. So when most of my clients, I'd say, the shared language that they use in their own meetings anyway is English. And regardless of what the shared language is, I always suggest, assuming you don't have translators, that since you're going to be speaking in a shared language that not everyone speaks proficiently or as proficiently as others, is to always allocate about 20%, up to 20% more time in a meeting, especially one that is a meeting for conversation, because I find that there is a frequent need to pause, paraphrase, restate, and other ways of ensuring that everyone has a shared understanding, versus saying, are there any questions, or does anyone not understand? Because you probably won't get any response that way. So I think it's incumbent on the meeting leader to pause and reflect and say either something they said, the facilitator said, in a different way, or someone else might be speaking with an accent that, let's say, is hard to decipher for others. So maybe the facilitator could pause and say, I want to make sure I understood what you said because it was a great point, and I just want to make sure I get it, rather than saying, I didn't understand what you said, could you repeat it, which of course would not be appropriate. So I think, to me, it's a matter of timing and realizing that when we speak in a different language, we need time to translate in and out of our local language often. And so that means more meeting time for everybody.
Okay. Anyone else?
I mean, I think that's a good advice to make people who are hesitant to participate. If you're a good meeting facilitator, you're leading a meeting, and you see someone that's an outlier, you have to be proactive in making them feel comfortable not being an outlier. And I think too often people are afraid to call on that person or make them feel part of the meeting because they're afraid, well, that's the shy person. If I call, it might actually freak them out. When in reality, maybe they're the shy person and they just they're not comfortable taking that alpha sort of approach to a meeting. So I think that you kind of have to bounce around. I mean, I think Nancy's advice is the same as like looking at people when you're looking in a room is reading the room, right? And I think that's, it's no matter how small the meeting is, especially when you have remote participants, you've got to be able to read the room.
Absolutely.
I think this is very important from a digital equity point of view, which we already touched upon, and then also the process here is crucial, because this facilitator, this moderator of the meeting, normally cannot be an active participant. And if I look at a lot of meetings, people are trying to combine different roles, but you cannot be and the facilitator and the decision maker, or you cannot have a voice in the debate. So I would say, from a process point of view, having this moderator, having this facilitator is a critical one going forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's amazing that we are reaching here these conclusions, Nancy, right? But my last question, as we are approaching the end of our broadcast here, to keep it short so that participants who are not watching us live, they can rewatch later on. So we already approached, the safe path for collaborative technology that it's future-proof, where they approach hybrid meeting challenges, where they talk about demographics also and translation. Last question is definitely how AI is going to impact this world of collaboration technology, meetings, conferences. How do you see AI playing a role here? Anyone?
I mean, I'll step in. I mean, from a technological standpoint, I think it has the potential of being the simplifier, or elimination of instructions, literally. I mean, I think that what we're seeing in AI right now is the tip of the iceberg, because the AI we're seeing right now is cool, but it's really not that what we need. Like, the AI we're seeing now is the ability to have, when I move over, the camera follows me and make sure I stay centered, and the ability to count the room. I mean, like, that stuff is interesting. That's not really what we want. The cool stuff comes when, and this is the big money, right? I love it when I start typing something in Google and then Google finishes it because it knows what I was about to type. Like, that to me is awesome, because that saved me a lot of work if I add up how many times I search, times the number of things I'm searching for. So what I want it to do, I want the AI to read my mind. When I walk in the meeting, I want it to already know what kind of meeting I have and what it's supposed to do and who the meeting participants are and what I'm going to talk about. That's the money, is that. And I think that's the ultimate simplifier. And we have that capability. It's just we're not connecting the tools together. So the calendar stuff has to be connected to the presentation generation tool, right? PowerPoint, Keynote, which has to be connected to the notes tool that you originally had, that you took the notes in the meeting on, which has to be connected to the people who are attending the meeting. Aggregating all that content and knowing what mood everyone's in when they show up, that's perfection right there, because then you know who's in a good mood, who's in a bad mood, who's in a hurry, who's thinking about other things, and then you're using the technology to do all that. That's going to be awesome. That's where we're going to get to, and that's what's going to be awesome about this. It's not going to happen overnight, but it'll be there quickly.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Thanks for your sharing. Lieven and Nancy, any more thoughts on AI?
Well, I'll just build on what Gary said. I think that any technology that allows us to decode the very subtle, fine emotional nuances that are almost impossible to detect in a two-dimensional, let's say, Zoom video image, will go a long way, because it is, I think, physically impossible to determine or to detect and to decode some of the, just a little crease of a mouth, or just the way someone's about to breathe or is breathing. It's really hard to detect right now. So I think anything that can give us a deeper level of the emotional content without reading people's minds, I would not like to go there myself. But I think that would be a big kind of a leveler in a way, a field leveler in a way that would give us a much better sense that we're actually with the person when in reality we're not in the same space.
Amazing.
Well,
how about you?
Yeah, I was catching up with somebody from Google today, actually the country manager for Google. And long story short, he talked about how Google made X-ray images or mammogram readings more efficient. And so they came to 98% accuracy through AI, which is better than what you would typically get through humans. If I think of self-driving cars, the way AI is being used there, it's amazing. And then look at where we are in the workplace today. And as Gary said, AI, it's in its infancy.
Yeah.
But there's high expectations there. I mean, if AI can help predict whether it's sentiment or reaction and so on. I mean, if somebody would say now, hey, Lieven, you keep on talking and you're losing the attention of Bill and of Bob, who are in the meeting, well, that's the kind of feedback I need. Or the other way around, hey, they are in a hurry. So that is to me the true power of AI in the meeting. It's giving me the real-time feedback of what is happening on the other side, ideally including emotions, although that's a tough one to achieve. But just already the hard facts would be great. Knowing Nancy's background, knowing Gary's background, knowing what we have in common and so on. I mean, I know Gary is a Star Wars fan. I'm not sure whether you are, Nancy, but those little things could help connect. And ending my rant now, if you look at meetings, and then especially virtual meetings, it's connection that is most often missing, that is most often lacking there. And if AI could help establish that, that would be great.
That's amazing. Well,
there's a great TED Talk if you want to really understand sort of like the vision for this, and it was delivered by Ray Kurzweil. It was a TED Talk. He's the director of R&D for Google. I put in the link to that, Paul, if you want to share that. And he does a really good job of explaining how AI can work. Like, and when Lieven said that, what he said, it popped in my head because he talks about this a lot. It's like someone's approaching, and it's not that link, but someone's approaching you, and this machine that's inside your head is telling you things about them so that you can engage them and know whether they're in a good mood or bad mood and that kind of stuff. And he tells you how that'll work. He tells you how Google's going to do that. And it's a little scary to watch, but it's really good.
This one here, desktop.
Yeah.
So it's our technology. Okay, so thanks so much for this sharing and for sharing your comments and your thoughts here with us today. We are going to close the session soon, but not without having like the golden nugget that you might take from this conversation. This was a wonderful mix of participants, different perspectives. So if there's something that you learned today from this conversation, would you mind to share it as a way of closing this talk?
Well, I can go first, and I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes because I'm sure there were a lot of great gems there. I think what I've learned from this conversation is that it's important to meet people where they are, and by that I mean before we, especially in the area of technology. So before we determine what technology we'll use, let's think about the objectives, the conversation objectives, and the demographics, the time zones, the native languages, the national cultures, and then really be thoughtful about what technology to use. And I think someone said earlier, make it, I think it was Gary, I'm sorry, I forget, but really make it simple. I mean, that it should be more simple than even though we can use complex technology, try to reduce it to its lowest common denominator when that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. Anyone else?
From my point of view, be prepared. I came across an article on McKinsey a few days ago. 68% of companies have no detailed plan communicated or in place when it comes to hybrid. We're coming back to the office. We're coming back to a new workplace. So just be prepared. Don't shy away from this. It's fun. It's a big opportunity for change. It's a big opportunity to have your people engaged. So don't miss the boat.
Fantastic.
I would, my answer is going to be slightly off what you're expecting, but I would say, like, if you look at like the last year, what's interesting is we've been forced into a new world order in a way of how to interact as people. And I like.
Now, Gary, I think technology is playing a little trick on us on this closure. But I'm sure that it will eventually come up live in a few minutes or so. Otherwise, we'll have to say, let me take just a moment here to do a recap on what has been Digital Collab until today, while Gary will be live again. So this was a large day, starting 6 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. We had registration sold out for the different sessions. So we had 2 Circle of Wisdoms in the morning with Ellen Nefrosky, Anna Nevsch, and Michael Randall here. And in the afternoon, Nancy Settle-Murphy here with us, Lieven Bertier from Barco, Gary Kayye. So these were the Circle of Wisdoms. During the day, we had 2 wonderful digital facilitation boot camps with Thomas Brecker and Sarah Wang and Noah Nelaj. This later one was recorded on video, so we'll be able to watch it. I have also to thank my co-hosts that hosted the sessions throughout the day, Laurie Ringard and Hector Villarreal. And of course, also a little bit about myself as a facilitator. If you like this session, I'm going to... Oh, Gary, are you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I disappeared for a second and popped right back in here. It was kind of unusual. I was just going to say, what I was saying is that I love what we've done in the last year. We've forced the adoption of technology. We've done what, had this not happened, Lieven, what we just went through may not have happened in our lifetimes in the industry. I don't know how much longer you're going to work or how much longer I'm going to work, but had this not happened, we wouldn't have seen this acceleration of technology. And I think what we need to think about, because I have 2 young daughters, meaning in they're millennials, they're perfectly fine communicating like this. They're perfectly fine having complete relationships and friendships that are completely online and completely Facebook based or FaceTime based or completely Zoom, whatever that is. We have to be okay with it now. So I think it's moving up in age, and it accelerated in a very short period of time So much so that even, our parents are even comfortable with this now. So I see that as nothing but great because it accelerates everything and it brings us all closer. Before I got cut off, I was saying prior to this, I'd see Lieven once a year, right, at Infocom or at ISE. And I've seen Lieven 7 or 8 times this year because we've been on panels like this. And although it's not the same, it's pretty darn close to being the same. Like I know more about Lieven than I did before. So I actually like this.
But that big glass of wine, Gary, we're going to have to take it face to face.
Right. I mean, we would normally have wine with cake. Barco's always serving cake in their booth and giving away Belgian beers. And, that's the only thing we're missing, right?
That's true.
There's a lot we're missing, and I'm sure that soon we'll be able to experience also that it's an inimitable power of the actual coffee break. As I say, nothing like an in-person coffee break. But anyway, we're pretty close. We're getting close here, and so thank you so much, Gary, Lieven, and Nancy for joining me in this last circle of wisdom. And I was introducing myself because I forgot to do so in the beginning. I have here a very, very short video on myself, and I will be hoping to see you on the next Digital Collab Europe edition pretty soon.
Paul Neonesdia. I am a certified professional facilitator from the IAF, which stands for International Association of Facilitators. Since 2018, I've started a book series on architecting collaboration, and my latest book in co-authorship with other renowned digital facilitators and guest co-authors is titled Beyond Virtual Meetings. It's all about the importance of the digital tools that can extend and augment the power of you as a facilitator and a meeting host in a virtual online meeting, but also on the hybrid meetings that are going to be so much needed in this post-pandemic era. Let me also talk to you about a group that I host on LinkedIn. It's called Digital Tools for Virtual Collaboration. We are now more than 770 members, and I will be very pleased if you will be interested to joining us.
Okido, and that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, and
hopefully
seeing you in the next editions. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation. It was great to meet everyone.
You too as well. Thank you. Lieven, go to sleep, Lieven. Go to bed.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.